What's up, everyone? Hope you're staying safe. I know it's not easy to always stay at home all the time and not go many places, but since you're at home probably not doing much, we might as well learn something, right? So because of that, in this video you're going to learn the importance of lighting in photography and videos. Basically, if you want to use a camera for anything, this video is going to explain why lighting is going to be something that you really need to understand. You can't just walk around outside and assume the lighting is going to be perfect everywhere you go. That's just not how it works. If you're outside, the lighting isn't always going to be perfect. If you're inside, the lighting isn't always going to be perfect, but there are going to be things that you can do to use the light to your advantage so that you can get the shots that you need with your camera. There's a lot of things to go over when it comes to lighting, so on that note, let's get into it. First thing I want to jump into is light positioning. The positioning of the light that you use can really change the composition and perspective of anything that you shoot with the camera. The first example that I can think of off the top of my head is the sun. The sun is constantly moving, so if you stay in one spot for an entire day, you'll see how the light source changes based on the positioning. Now when you're inside, that's a completely different story. The light source typically doesn't change position, but being inside gives you the luxury of being able to manipulate the light sources that you have around you. Now when it comes to light positioning, I'm only going to give you 3 basic positions that every beginner should know. The good thing about these positions is that they are very easy to understand, and everyone that is trying to learn them should be able to understand them relatively quickly. The first position that I'm going to talk about is front lighting. Front lighting is something that fully lights up your subject. The light is either directly behind the camera or at a slight angle, but it makes it so there are no shadows on the front of the subject. So if you're pointing the camera at someone's face, you're not going to see any shadows on a person's face. You're going to be able to see every detail of the subject because there aren't going to be any shadows for certain details to hide behind. And if you're holding that camera, you know what details want to be seen through that camera. Side lighting is the next light position. Now to me, this one actually sounds pretty self-explanatory. This is when you have a light source that is directly to the side of your subject, basically at a 90-degree angle from the camera. And with this type of lighting, you're only going to be able to see half your subject. And because you're only going to be able to see half your subject, the other half is going to be covered in shadows. And because of those shadows, you might be able to cover some of those details that you might not want to be seen from the viewer. The thing you don't want to do with this type of lighting is cover up any important details that you want the viewer to actually see. Another thing with side lighting is that once you start to actually use it, you'll see how the mood of the entire scene that you're shooting is actually changing. So if you compare this to front lighting, if you have everything set up the same way with the front lighting and side lighting, you'll see that the mood of both shots are completely different. Even though everything's set up the exact same way, the mood and composition are going to be completely different. Now we're going to move on to the third basic light position, and that is backlighting. Now that we understand front lighting and we understand side lighting, the only logical thing for backlighting to be is the light source being behind your subject. For a lot of beginners, backlighting is something that definitely isn't easy to work with at all. If you're solely using backlighting, you're going to see how much more difficult it is to work with compared to front lighting and side lighting. Backlighting creates a silhouette of your subject, meaning all the shadows are in the front of your subject because all of the light source is behind your subject. However, the more you work with backlighting, the easier it gets to work with. The more your skills develop with the camera, the more you're going to want to actually use backlighting. Backlighting is something that can really be used to create some amazing scenes and shots. Now the next aspect of lighting that I want to talk about is the battle between soft light and hard light. Now the more involved you are when it comes to using a camera, the more this concept is going to make sense to you. Soft light is going to be something that allows you to see a much smoother transition between the light and dark areas of your frame. There isn't going to be a sudden change between light and shadows. There's going to be a nice smooth gradient over your entire frame. If you want to see a good example of soft lighting, stand next to a window. When the sun isn't directly shining through a window, that window is going to provide perfect soft lighting. If you take a picture of your face in front of that window, you're going to see that there's a nice smooth transition between the lights and shadows of your face. Now when it comes to hard light, that's going to be a much harsher transition between the light and darks of your image. Hard light really causes that sudden change between a light and a shadow. With hard light, you're also going to have much darker shadows in your images. Now hard light is something that a lot of beginners choose to try to avoid as much as possible, mostly because it's not the easiest type of lighting to work with. When a lot of beginners try to use hard light, they just use it incorrectly. Obviously, with hard light, you're going to have darker shadows, and with darker shadows, that means you're going to be covering up a lot more details of your subject. And when it comes to a lot of beginners, they aren't exactly sure how to manipulate that hard light to their advantage. That's why soft light is always a lot easier to work with because it creates a much smoother photo or video overall. There are a lot less shadows you have to deal with, and when you don't have as much to deal with, the shot is just going to be that much easier for you. Now it's time to move on to light sources and diffusers. Light sources are very easy to explain. If it's something that gives off light, then you can consider that a light source. It's not rocket science. But what types of light sources give off certain types of light? What provides a soft light? What provides a hard light? Simply put, larger light sources are able to give you a softer light, while smaller light sources are able to provide you with hard light. For example, let's look at the sun. I don't mean to actually look at the sun, but just think about it in your head. The sun is the largest light source that we have on this planet, and it provides the greatest source for a soft light. Hence why when I film outside, it's a lot easier for the most part because I don't necessarily have to set up any light for myself. Now if we change gears and talk about a flashlight, for example, that flashlight is going to be able to provide you with a much harder light than the sun would. Now I'm not saying the sun can't provide you with a hard light and that the flashlight can't provide you with a soft light. It's really about how you use that light source to your advantage. The sun casts a giant light, so the light source is spread out over a greater area, thus giving you a much softer light. The flashlight is much more concentrated, so that concentrated light is going to provide you with a much harder light source. Distance is another factor that comes into play when it comes to these light sources. The further away that light source is, the softer that light's going to be. The closer that light source is, the harder the light's going to be. So that's something that's really fun to play around with when you're experimenting with your camera. Hopefully I'm explaining all of this in a way that isn't too difficult to understand at all, because in my head, oh man, all of this is clicking. Yeah, it's not going to be any issues with you understanding, but to you it might be like question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, but hopefully I'm eliminating any possible questions that you have. I guess now would be a good time to start talking about diffusers. Diffusers are used to soften up a light source. And based on all the other examples that I've used, I might as well use the sun again. That is the biggest light source that we use on a near daily basis. So you have the sun out there in the sky. Then you see some clouds rolling in. When those clouds roll in, they cover up the sun, which is that light source. And all of a sudden, the light that is around you isn't nearly as harsh as it was when the sun was just shining directly on you. That is because the clouds are acting as a perfect diffuser for the sun. There's still some light getting through from the sun, but it's not a direct sunshine. However, I live in the desert, and it's funny how the desert doesn't seem to have many clouds at all times. Like seriously, if you saw this sky right now, there is literally no clouds in sight. I can't see anything at all.
Here is some proof. Literally not a cloud for miles and miles and miles.
But anyway, diffusers are great when the light source that you're using is too harsh and you need to soften it up a bit. Quick hack, if you have a light source that's too harsh but you don't have a diffuser anywhere around you, or you don't have one, use a bed sheet. Bed sheets act as a perfect diffuser because they're thin enough to where the light is still going to get through, but they're not thick enough to the point where you can't see any of the light. Oh man, my back is not feeling good on this bench right now. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to light is color temperature. Now I know a lot of lights, if you look at them separately, they all pretty much look the same. However, every single light has a different kind of color temperature, which determines the actual color and heat of that light. Hence the term color temperature. You have lights that can lean towards the bluer side of things, and you have lights that can lean towards the orangey side of things. Bluer lights are considered to be cooler, and orangey lights are considered to be warmer. If you take a regular incandescent light bulb and compare it to an LED light, you'll see a huge difference in the color of both bulbs. And these changes in color can really change the way your scene looks when you're shooting it. Most cameras do its own... What the? There's so many cars! Most cameras are able to do an auto white balance, but that isn't always going to be a saving grace for you because some color temperatures are going to be too much and stand out in a way that you might not want them to stand out. Now there are bulbs out there that you can buy nowadays where you can change the actual color of that bulb. If you want a red light for your video, you can make that bulb red. If you want a blue light for your video, you can make it blue. If you want it green, you can make it green. These are little things that you can use to your advantage and give you certain types of touches and moods for any shot that you want to get. As you can see, I can do a lot of different things and play a lot of different roles when it comes to you using your camera. So before you even press that shutter button or press the record button, you're gonna want your light to be as perfect as possible. When you start with good light, everything becomes easier. Your life becomes easier. Filming, shooting, getting pictures, everything is easier. So hopefully by now you understand that lighting is extremely important when it comes to using your camera. If you still don't understand why lighting is so important, then I recommend watching this video again. And if you still don't understand it after that, watch the video again. Plus, if you keep doing that, that's gonna help me in the end anyway, so it's gonna be a win-win for both of us. You learn more about the importance of lighting in photography and videos, and YouTube will show my video more and more to more people. Speaking of YouTube, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for this channel. If you made it this far, I know you're not gonna wanna miss anything else that I'm gonna provide for you in the future. And if you were wondering about some of the equipment I use in this video or some of the lights that I use for the B-roll that I shot, I'll leave those in the description below. And I want you to leave a comment below. Tell me if you feel that you're gonna put more emphasis on lighting based on this video. And if you wanna see some cool pictures and videos where I'm using different lighting techniques and different lighting positionings, be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'll leave that right here and I'll leave a link to it below. And there you have it, that's all I have for you. Hope you're all continuing to stay safe. I'm Steven from DareToCapture. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.